In first 100 days of Donald Trump, says the U.S. Immigration Agency that canceled visa of thousands of international students. U.S. citizenship could soon look very different, thanks to Trump. In his second term, sweeping changes to immigration policy are redefining who is eligible to enter, remain in, or become a citizen of the United States. With stricter vetting, wealth-based preferences, and ideological loyalty tests, the administration is steering the system toward exclusion and control. If you are interested in this topic, please pay attention and watch the video through the end to get all the information. Please hit like and subscribe, and don't forget to push the notification bell for an upcoming video. The U.S. Immigration Agency, USCIS, recently issued a note to highlight key developments of President Donald Trump's 100 days in office. The note also shares social media profiles that the agency screened of people holding U.S. visa to check any anti-America activity. In the first 100 days of the Trump administration, USCIS has restored robust screening and vetting capabilities, re-emphasized fraud detection and deterrence, reduced exploitation of the immigration system through humanitarian and temporary protected status programs, in partnership with other agencies, help reduce encounters at our southern border and increase safety at home, with violent criminal aliens rapidly being removed from our neighborhoods, and introduce common-sense policy and operational solutions to help protect Americans. It said in the statement, the Trump administration has revoked visas of approximately 4,000 international students during the first 100 days in office. The numbers are the highest ever in U.S. history and demonstrate USCIS zero-tolerance policy. The releases said that USCIS adopted social media vetting for anti-Americanism to consider social media content that indicates an alien endorsing, espousing, promoting, or supporting anti-Semitic terrorism, anti-Semitic terrorist organizations, or other anti-Semitic or anti-American activity as a negative factor in any USCIS discretionary analysis when adjudicating immigration benefit requests. U.S. visa applicants. There are only male and female, no third sex. USCIS returned to its historical policy of recognizing only two sexes, male and female, that are binary, biological, and not changeable. USCIS's work in protect the integrity of women's sports by ensuring that aliens traveling to the United States to compete do so only in sporting events for their biological sex. Visiting America is not an entitlement but a privilege. USCIS stand resonates with the view of the U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. In an opinion piece for Fox News published last month, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that visiting America is not an entitlement but a privilege extended to those who respect its laws and values. U.S. visas are a privilege, rather than a right, reserved for those who make the United States better, not seek to destroy from the inside, Rubio wrote. Aliens who endorse or espouse terrorist activity or persuade others to endorse or espouse terrorist activity or support a terrorist organization, such as Hamas, are ineligible for U.S. visas, Rubio stated. Rubio said visa holders should know in no uncertain terms that the U.S. government's rigorous security vetting does not end once a visa is granted. In the first 100 days, USCIS put a stop to disastrous Biden-era humanitarian policies that invited fraud and allowed criminal aliens to legally live and work in our communities, facilitated arrests of criminals attempting to gain immigration benefits, and for the first time in decades is ensuring every alien in the U.S. is registered as required by law, said USCIS spokesman Matthew Trugesser. Aliens, immigration attorneys, and non-government organizations take note. The days of exploiting our immigration system are over. Aliens who want to live and work in America need to do it legally or get out. U.S. citizenship could soon look very different, thanks to Trump. Nearly 4 months into his second term, it's becoming clear that President Donald Trump's xenophobic views on immigration are reshaping what it means to become a U.S. citizen. His vision tilts heavily toward the wealthy and well-to-do, with special shortcuts to them and barriers to entry for the rest, particularly the world's refugees and asylum seekers. There's Trump's proposal for $5 million gold Visa cards, the prototype of which is literally Trump's visage and Lady Liberty emblazoned on a golden rectangle. The cards will allow, in Trump's words, very high-level people a route to citizenship. One goal of the gold card is to cut years off the typical vetting process, producing residency in as little as 2 weeks. Then there are the hefty deterrents for everyone else. New and escalating fees, proposed in the GOP's House budget bill, would quickly diminish the chances of entry for lower-income immigrants or refugees. A $3,500 fee will be slapped on unaccompanied minors. Anyone seeking a work permit would have to pay $550. And asylum applications, previously free, would cost $1,000 each. Most refugees and asylum seekers arrive in the U.S. with few possessions and even less cash. Until now, those with valid claims have depended heavily on modest federal resettlement stipends to ease their transition. And while it remains a long shot, Trump's challenge to the Constitution's promise of birthright citizenship is an important declaration by this administration that it wants to determine who can become a citizen. Trump would deny citizenship to children born to parents who are undocumented or who are here lawfully but on a temporary student or work visa. Some 2 million foreign nationals are here on such visas. Trump's case goes to the Supreme Court later this month, and depending on the outcome, a new subclass of Americans could be created born here, but never fully belonging. Finally, there was this little-noticed move amid a flurry of other executive orders. Trump in February had the Justice Department create a denaturalization section dedicated to stripping immigrants of their U.S. citizenship. Such cases, the department has said, would have no statute of limitations. There are more than 24 million naturalized citizens in the U.S., all of whom have traveled a long path through the immigration bureaucracy to get where they are. This project follows up on some of Trump's first-term efforts when his Justice Department ordered investigations of 700,000 naturalized citizens for possible infractions, few of which were ever completed. Later in his term, Trump created an Office of Denaturalization. In 2023, Stephen Miller, Deputy Chief of Staff to the President, said that under a second term, denaturalization efforts would be turbocharged. Taken together, these new policies would create a more mutable type of citizenship, no longer rooted in birthplace, or in the arduous and lengthy task of proving one's worth. It is a dramatic turn for a nation that, nearly since its inception, has welcomed immigrants and is now home to 1/5 of the world's international migrants. Such a shift would hurt this country. Running immigrants through a wealth filter would cost us the drive, persistence, and ingenuity that newcomers have brought to this country throughout its history. There is no filter for such intangibles. Offering the super rich a fast track to citizenship would also shorten the vetting process, which is, after all, an important security measure. When Trump was asked about whether Russian oligarchs or other unsavory types might take advantage of his gold card, Trump replied, possibly, adding, "Hey, I know some Russian oligarchs that are nice people," and it would diminish the U.S. itself. For nearly 250 years, this country has stood as a beacon of freedom and hope and has reaped the rewards. The stories of impoverished refugees and immigrants who go on to contribute to the nation's well-being are legion. Trump's vision of U.S. citizenship seemed to grow out of his views on immigration more broadly, but it should alarm all Americans, even the many who support his more popular efforts, such as securing a border that had become too porous under President Joe Biden, arresting and deporting criminals, and focusing on the human and drug trafficking that makes insecure borders so dangerous. Anti-immigrant sentiment has run like a bright thread through Trump's public life since he started his first campaign for president. In his first term, he cracked down on legal immigration far more than illegal, sending the number of green cards and temporary visas, known formally as non-immigrant visas, plummeting. In a meeting midway through his first term, Trump famously inquired why the country should admit immigrants from all these countries, such as Haiti, El Salvador, and African nations. He suggested more immigrants from countries such as Norway or Asian countries that he believed helped the U.S. economically. There have long been signs that Trump's goal is to rid this country of those he considers undesirable. For now, that would seem to turn on one's wealth or lack of it. Soon it could be whatever else Trump finds objectionable. Rümeysa Öztürk, a Turkish student at Tufts University, has been in prison for 5 weeks since masked ICE agents arrested her in Somerville, Massachusetts. Her only infraction was co-writing a student op-ed for the school newspaper that was at odds with the Trump administration's support of Israel's war in Gaza. Mohsen Madawi, a permanent resident, attended what he thought was a naturalization interview in April and was promptly arrested for his political views, on the Israel-Hamas war. A judge freed him from federal custody last week, but he still faces possible deportation. In an op-ed for the New York Times, Madawi said that, "When they look at my case, all Americans should ask themselves, what is left of our democracy and who will be targeted next?" Remarkably, Madawi said he still wants to become a citizen. "I believe in a system of democracy, and I have faith in the justice system here. Faith like that has fueled this country for 250 years. In comparison, Trump's obsession with wealth and loyalty is far too puny a way to measure what makes a good American. Trump offers $1,000 incentive to migrants who leave the country voluntarily. The Trump administration announced it is offering a $1,000 incentive to migrants who self-deport using the CBP Home app that was once used to seek asylum. The Homeland Security Department pitched the monetary incentive as a more cost-effective, for the government, and dignified way to leave the country. The department has been working to ramp up the speed and number of arrests, detentions, and removal of immigrants without legal status over the last few months, a costly and resource-intensive endeavor. The department estimates the average cost of arresting, detaining, and removing someone without legal status amounts to around $17,121. Immigration enforcement officials have noted that detention capacity is maxed out, and the administration is seeking to streamline removals. Trump's border czar Tom Homan told on Monday that more than 7,000 people have used the app since it was rebranded from facilitating asylum requests to promoting removals. Officials canceled asylum appointments on the app within hours of President Trump's inauguration in January. The administration then launched a new effort last month that urged migrants to leave immediately using the app. The administration is banking on the fact that migrants would rather leave the country than risk being arrested by immigration officials and face a fine, a choice many are now grappling with. DHS also announced it has already used a monetary incentive once to transport someone from Chicago to Honduras. The agency added that people without legal status have booked additional plane tickets for this week and next. But immigrant advocates are skeptical. Even if some people may take the administration up on their offer, immigration advocates say most don't believe they will ever receive the incentive and eventually be able to apply for legal status, as the administration has suggested. DHS did not respond to questions about how many people were set to be paid and how the incentive is issued. There are some 11 million people without legal status in the country, according to estimates from 2022. They're clearly out of touch with the reality that immigrant families and communities and individuals face in this country and why they're here in the first place, said Esther Reyes, campaign strategist for Protecting Immigrant Families Coalition. Reyes says families targeted by this messaging have long felt the threat of removal. A lot of the fear that communities feel has been around for a long time, particularly for people who are here without any kind of legal status. Every day is a risk, Reyes said. Unfortunately, folks are used to the threats, whether small or large, that come their way on a regular basis. U.S. revokes visas daily will continue, says Trump admin on student anxiety. America's world-class university system has long made it a destination for ambitious students from around the world. The United States hosts more than 300,000 students from India, more than from any other country. Nearly 100,000 Indians are employed through the OPD program. However, the Trump administration's swift move to terminate the legal status of thousands of international students through the cancellation of SEVIS records, and in some cases revoke their visas, has created widespread fear. Students are now reluctant even to return home for summer holidays or leave the U.S. for research work. A PhD student at the University of California, San Diego, had planned a trip with friends to Hawaii. But after hearing reports of students across the country losing their legal status, the trip was called off. "I probably would have skipped to have as few interactions with governments as possible," the student told Associated Press, speaking anonymously out of fear of being targeted. At the University of Illinois, another student said he has been keeping a low profile since a classmate was forced to leave the country after their status was terminated. He had already booked a trip to visit his family in Asia this summer, but now fears he may not be allowed back into the United States. "Right now," he said, "I'm afraid I might not be able to come back." In response to a query from Business Standard about student anxiety over traveling abroad before the next semester, a U.S. State Department spokesperson said, The Department of State revokes visas every day in order to secure America's borders and keep our communities safe, and will continue to do so. The spokesperson added, "It is committed to protecting our nation and its citizens by upholding the highest standards of national security and public safety through our visa process." The spokesperson also explained the difference between visas and SEVIS, saying, "The Department of State adjudicates F, M, and J non-immigrant visas overseas for students and exchange visitors. A student or exchange visitor issued a visa uses that visa to travel to United States port of entry, airport, or land border crossing, and request admission from U.S. Department of Homeland Security Customs and Border Protection. The CBP officer determines eligibility to enter the United States. Once admitted into the United States, the Student and Exchange Visitor Information System, administered by the Department of Homeland Security, tracks and monitors schools, exchange visitor programs, and F, M, and J non-immigrants while they visit the United States and participate in the U.S. education system." The spokesperson said, "What students can do if SEVIS is terminated. SEVIS revocation means a student falls out of legal status in the country." Charles Cook, an immigration lawyer, told Business Standard that students in this situation must hire a lawyer immediately. "Students have the legal right to sue the government for illegal actions," said Cook, who is representing 133 international students who had their legal status revoked, about a third of whom are from India. An Associated Press review of university statements, official correspondence, and court documents found at least 1,220 students at 187 colleges, universities, and university systems had either lost their visas or had their legal status terminated since late March. Some students left the country, others stopped attending classes, and a few went into hiding. Many international students whose status was revoked said they did not fit into any criminal category or had only minor incidents on record. Allegations of mass action without individual review. Sheila Murthy, president and CEO of U.S.-based Murthy law firm, told there was little individual review behind the mass cancellations. "Based on our understanding, the Department of Homeland Security took a shortcut of targeting anyone who had any type of incident or had their fingerprints taken or attended a court hearing," said Murthy. "They may have used AI to send out blanket visa revocations and SEVIS terminations without confirming if they were throwing the baby out with the bathwater." She added that most affected students either had no criminal record or had seen their cases dismissed. "The revocations and terminations in those cases would be clearly incorrect and violate due process under U.S. law," she said. Drop in Indian student visas. After a wave of legal challenges, the Department of Homeland Security reversed course last month and restored SEVIS records. However, the concerns had already made an impact. Even before the Trump administration's actions, there was a fall in the number of Indian students choosing the United States. According to State Department figures, January saw a 50% drop in visas issued to Indian students compared with the previous year. "The message from the government seems, we don't want your best and brightest," said Cook. In just 100 days, Trump's immigration agency has revoked thousands of student visas and vows to continue daily cancellations. As legal challenges grow and fear spreads among immigrants and international students, the administration is also offering $1,000 incentives for voluntary departures. This video signals a radical transformation in how America handles immigration. That is all for today in this video. What are your thoughts on this? Please let us know in the comments section below. Thanks for watching the entire video. Hopefully, the information is useful to you. See you later in the next video. Till then, take care.
In first 100 days of Donald Trump, says the U.S. Immigration Agency that cancelled visa of thousands of international students. In his second term, President Donald Trump has implemented a sweeping overhaul of U.S. immigration policy, focusing on a heightened scrutiny, ideological alignment, and wealth-based privileges. The U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services enacted stricter screening protocols, incorporating social media monitoring to flag anti-American or anti-Semitic sentiment. This aggressive stance led to the revocation of approximately 4,000 student visas, the highest number ever recorded. The administration also reinstated a binary gender definition, restricting visa eligibility and sports participation to individuals' biological sex. Terms with the backing of a Secretary of State Marco Rubio emphasize that visas are privilege granted to those who uphold American values. The administration proposed steep fees $1,000 for asylum, $550 for work permits, and $3,500 for unaccompanied minor, effectively discouraging lower-income immigrants. At the same time, it promoted a fast-track citizenship program for ultra-wealthy applicants, highlighting a preference for economic elites while marginalizing the poor. Proposal to end birthright citizenship and the creation of a denaturalization session in the Justice Department for the signal an intent to strip naturalized citizens of their rights indefinitely. These policies have been accompanied by actions targeting dissenters, including the arrest of green card holders and students critical of U.S. foreign policy. Such cases reflect a broader trend of political conformity being enforced through immigration controls. The administration also introduced a $1,000 incentives for undocumented migrants to self-deport using the CBP-1 app, marketed as a human, cost-effective solution to reduce reliance on detention facilities. However, advocates question the program's reliability, citing distrust among undocumented communities and doubts about actual payments. International students, particularly from India, have been disproportionately impacted. The Department of Homeland Security terminated serious records or over 1,200 students from 187 institutions, many without serious infractions, leading to loss of legal status, fear of depression, and a chilling impact on future applicants. Although legal challenges lead to some reinstatement, the damage to the US education system reputations was already done, with a reported 50% drop in Indian student visas by January. Overall, the Trump administration immigration strategy has favored wealth, ideological loyalty, and punitive enforcement over fairness, due process, and often is generating fear, legal conflicts, and declining trust in the United States as a destination for opportunity and education.